Now that's a cider. I'll talk about that in a moment. But I'm going to start off by saying, welcome to the Dark Souls 2 livestream series. This is going to be a long-running series because I like Dark Souls 2. Nowhere near as much as the other Souls games, but I do like it. I didn't used to like it. There is a long story associated with that. I am going to tell that story, but I don't know when, because it's going to be a long story, and possibly a rather emotional story. That's going to be really loud, by the way. I don't know what it is. Again, From Software seems to be exceptionally incapable of actually porting a game to PC. They have this little idea in their head that if you've made certain adjustments to the volume of your game in the game settings, that is not actually going to apply the first time you press start on the start screen of the game. So that sound effect that plays when you hit the start button, if you have essentially set up your audio, let me rephrase that, if you have your audio set up in such a way as to require the game to be as quiet as you set it in-game, pressing start is going to completely blow your eardrums out. Why is this? Well, I'm guessing this is because it accesses the in-game settings of your profile after you've pressed the start button, which is ridiculous. I mean, why on earth would they do that? What's incredible is that it's exactly the same with Dark Souls 3. It's not just this game. Dark Souls 3 is the same. How on earth can From Software be so manifestly incapable and demonstrably inept when it comes to making a video game? I don't know. Well, not making a video game. That's unfair, isn't it? It's just the porting process that seems to elude them. I just don't know how it works. It's shocking. A-Gaming says that Scholar of the First Sin is easy mode. I don't know about that. That might be something to discuss separately. I should clarify this immediately. I am playing the original Dark Souls 2. For those of you who are familiar with Dark Souls 2, you probably will have already worked that out, because there is no Scholar of the First Sin written on this page. You can also see the copyright information at the bottom there. At no point is Scholar of the First Sin printed there, or nowhere there is it printed. I don't like Scholar of the First Sin at all, but as I say, that is a separate discussion. I don't want to get caught up in tangential discussions right now, because the main point of discussion is A, the fact that I'm starting a new series in Dark Souls 2, B, that I spent the first 3 years of Dark Souls 2's release feeling a sense of bitter disappointment at Dark Souls 2, or about Dark Souls 2, towards Dark Souls 2, because apparently I need to edit my words and my sentences while speaking to the extreme because I've got a problem. And it really took the PC release, or I guess my first experience with playing on PC, to really be able to come to terms with what Dark Souls 2 was, and to be at peace with it. Let's get started with making a profile, and then maybe I'll get to that. Most of my PC play, interestingly, like a lot more of my PC play compared with this version, has actually been on Scholar of the First Sin. That's because I didn't realize that the original version did release on the PC. I had no idea. I hadn't heard about it at the time, so that was rather odd. Is that appearing on the screen? I don't think it is. I do wonder these things. No, it's not. You don't need to know what was appearing on the screen or what I thought was appearing on the screen because you couldn't see it, so it's irrelevant. Let's go to new game. What is my controller doing? Please just connect. Yes. That you can hear. Well, there was something that it doesn't matter. Seeing and hearing are different senses, but we're not going to get on that point.
Perhaps you've seen it. Maybe in a dream.
This is probably very loud, so I'm going to skip it, sorry. No, Doomlink, I needed to see the opening cutscene, shut up. I have a distinct feeling that it was too loud, and I'm not going to... Actually, it probably was quite fine. Lowering my monitor volume there. Monitoring volume. This game's very interesting in the very beginning for the reason that you actually are immediately playing without having actually made any decisions as to how your character is going to look, how it's going to start off stats-wise. There is no character creation sequence at the very beginning. You are actually here in the game playing it, which confused me greatly, because I was one of those people who didn't watch gameplay of Dark Souls 2 before it came out. I suppose I did watch gameplay of it, but not, you know, an actual fresh start of the game. I'd seen gameplay footage, but not someone sitting down playing it from the beginning prior to release. So I came into this game fresh, and it did confuse me to see this. But you do actually, and I think this was a creative way to approach it, you have to enter this building and then conduct conversation with this woman, who then wants to know more about you. And you then give her the information that she seeks, which is effectively all of your character creation settings. Or all of the parameters of your character that are important and relate to your build. There's probably a lot of chatting at the moment. But, oh yes, you reminded me of my Twitch rant that I was going to go on. The Twitch rant is... Oh, sorry, the Twitch ran. Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if Twitch ran from the streaming community and we had to scramble to find an alternative? Whatever it would be better. You'd have to agree. Some will argue, there are alternatives, Doomlink, what are you talking about? Well, maybe there are, but I'm hopelessly committed to Twitch at the moment. Let's name my character Jade. Jafta! No, Jade is what I want to go with. Jade, are you sure of your name? Yes, I'm making a female character. She's going to be a faith build. I've only done one character in the PC version of the original version of Dark Souls 2. So, yeah, I ended up having a dexterity build for that character, so I don't want to do a dex build right now. That's probably what I'm most comfortable with across the board. I would have liked to have done a magic build, but there is a process associated with that, which I'll get into another time, because that's, again, one of those tangential discussions that I could get on for quite some time, which would really distract from things that I would rather be discussing at this point. So, magic builds were not going to work. So I thought, well, what would also be fun? And I suppose that a cleric or faith build, depending on how you want to refer to it, would be a bit of good fun. I will use choose a bonfire ascetic as my starting gift. That's what I always choose in this game. I will get to discussions relating to Dark Souls 2, how I experienced Dark Souls 2, and how my feelings about it changed. Not drastically. It's not like my opinions that I held in the past ever changed in any way. It's just that my priorities changed, and my capacity to be offended by From Software's blunder, which was this game, changed. So, yeah. To start with, I really should be choosing a female. There you go. Let's go build. Actually, I can't see much of the body with this outfit on, so yeah, let's... Whose idea? I'm sorry, this really is extraordinary. How could it be that I'm expected to make a judgment on the physique of my character while she's dressed in something? It's quite obvious that they expect me to select my class before I actually get to the screen where I'm making these adjustments to my physical appearance beneath my clothes. So why am I still garbed in the outfit of my class? I mean, it beggars belief, doesn't it? Anyway, those of you, it is extremely hot, by the way. It is hot and humid. Basically, it's a hot night, and a thunderstorm is rolling through at the moment, and I am dripping wet. I can tell you that the cider is only partially helping when it comes to the discomfort level. Hello, Ethan. Hair color can be... That's actually fine. I'm fine with that hair color. You look beautiful. Let's go. I think we've actually spent enough time in this screen. Let's go cleric. You look so beautiful. Don't reset everything I've done so far. Then I'll actually burst into tears and just stop the recording.
All people come here for the same reason.
Unbelievable.
To break the curse.
You're no different, I should think.
So for those of you still with me,
Doesn't stand a chance.
I'm actually going to skip that whole character creation sequence
You never know.
in the VOD, because that was thoroughly disengaging for any person watching. I know it to be true. It was just me yelling at the game for giving me one of the worst character creation sequences ever conceived of. Alright. This is fine, I think. Oh, how pale is she? Look how pale she is! Of course, now this is a separate issue relating to... This is incredible what I'm about to tell you, but it's true. In the character creation sequence of Dark Souls 2, the lighting is different, specifically in that character creation sequence, to almost any scenario in the game itself, which means that it's actually quite dark in the appearance of the character creation sequence box. But then you come out here and it's so light. Everything is so much lighter, so a character with pale skin, but tastefully pale skin in the character creation sequence, ends up looking like, not even an albino, it instead, like your character ends up looking actually pale and ghostly and pallid and fucking moribund. That's what your character ends up looking like. My character is far too pale right now. Hold on, let me just demonstrate this further. That is not what I had decided for my character to look like, in terms of skin tone. Now, I'm not actually that fussed in terms of skin tone. She can be a bit tan, she can be a bit pale, but this is going beyond what I wanted. I'm so frustrated by this fucking game. Remember when I was going to talk about how this game doesn't bother me anymore? No, it still does. Clearly. I'm making a new fucking character. This is absolutely absurd. I don't want to save, actually, but I have to because I want to quit, and there's no option to not save but quit, except to Alt F4 or whatever. Just say she's Irish. No, not even the Irish look like they're actually dead. She looks undead. Don't worry, this is going to be a faster process than you could possibly imagine, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be some fucking edits in this VOD, though. You better believe it. Better believe there's going to be some fucking edits. Alright. Let's, delete that, because that's actually an abomination. Long story short, no, there's not going to be any Doomlink bloopers. It's not a blooper me sitting there struggling with the character creation sequence. It's just a waste of time. It's a waste of digital space in the... or on the internet. In the internet. On the intranet. Literally, my will to even play this game is seeping away. To make matters worse, I am just saturated in sweat. It's the most humid life has ever been. Also, it feels. That is my name. I'm sure of my name. Now give me a fucking character that doesn't look... See, this is not even pale. This isn't even close to being pale. And it was almost this skin tone before. It doesn't matter. Don't reset it, just, okay, go to Bonfire Aesthetic, go to Cleric. In body, I remember that I went for this build. Go back here. No, you're not... Stop it! Go to that gender. Fuck. The unmarked gender. Jeez. From Software were actually quite ahead of their time. This is back in 2014. Unmarked gender. Little did they know what kind of statement they were making. I don't even want to imagine what that would look like outside of this screen. You would actually be incandescent. You know what, that's a great skin tone, let's just keep with that. Just go with a standard face. The standard face is fine, I'm perfectly happy with that. Alright. Yeah. The thing is, she looks quite... She doesn't look pale here, but she's going to look pale in a tasteful way when we exit this. She's never going to look this dark in-game, which is truly the greatest blunder of any game developer or game designer's character creation sequence. To actually have a character creation sequence that casts a light on the character that is almost never replicated in the game itself. I mean, what the fuck were they thinking? Anyway, that should be fine. As long as I've got bonfire aesthetic, I'm female, and I'm a cleric, I'm happy. Finalize creation. This is my true self. I had to take some time to actually establish that, but she is now no longer literally fucking dead. She's tastefully, well, not even that pale, to be honest. She looks just normal. Okay. Uh-oh, Doomlink said normal. What's normal? Kill him. Burn him at the stake, he said normal. It was a misspeak, okay, shut up. Not particularly white and not particularly black, okay? Is it alright for me to establish that? Excellent, let's move on. Now, I can only use this with 2 hands, evidently. Yes, technically my character is dead. Well, no, actually. How it works in Dark Souls 2 is that you are defaultly alive, and then once you die on your first death, or the first time you die, you will need a human effigy to return to being alive. So I'm currently alive as a character, I believe. I'm quite sure that's how it works. Anyway, I'm going to get... that's not how I wanted to approach that. Stop it. I wanted to do a running attack, but I totally failed. It's worth mentioning that the mace is one of your better starting weapons in terms of damage, so killing this guy can be slightly easier, but it is balanced in the sense that while you are dealing more damage with the mace, your range is greatly reduced. Do keep in mind that the range of this creature's attacks is considerable. So getting in close, look how quick he is to sit on you. As soon as you're on that side of him, he's sitting on you. You can obviously use that to your advantage. But as I said, he has quite a considerable amount of reach there. There is a temptation to do that, which maybe wasn't a great idea. I really was expecting that strong attack, which is what I just performed, to kill this creature, and it did not. Alright, so that's that. Stone ring. It's a very good ring to have at the start of the game, and quite frankly at any point in the game. I don't even know where my ring slots are, evidently. I am so jaded. Hold on. Let me make the joke real clear. Where is the name of my the name of my character is not displayed anywhere. Fine. I named my character Jade and I just said that I'm jaded. Haha, that's the joke. Now that I've explained the joke, which is never a good sign, you should never have to explain a joke like that. The reason why I'm feeling that way is because I had to go through quite a little bit of adversity to get to the point where I was actually able to play the fucking game. And that is after I had pretty much just said that I like this game. I kind of do, and I kind of don't. I have a love-hate relationship with this game. I'm effectively at peace with it, but it still fills me with rage beyond all measure. let's talk about my experience with Souls first and foremost. A little bit of a recap for those of you who don't know me as a Souls player. Perhaps you're more familiar with me as a Monster Hunter player. I began both Souls and Monster Hunter in the year of 2009. I'm not clear in my mind as to which game I played first, Demon Souls or Monster Hunter. I think I have at times been able to really get a key memory in my mind to say for certain which one I played first, but every now and again I'm just unsure. But basically, without worrying about that, I began Demon Souls around mid-2009. I think it wasn't long before the Atlas version came out, but it was technically before the Atlas version came out. I played a lot of Demon Souls, probably not in 2009, I was too busy getting absolutely beaten into the ground by the game, but particularly in 2010 and 2011 I did play a lot of that game. I enjoyed it immensely, it was one of my favourite games, and it completely shaped who I was as a video gamer, because I hadn't played many games that were at that level of difficulty. You know, I didn't grow up with the retro games of the 80s, so I didn't have that built-in capacity to constantly fail and try again, over and over and over again, until eventually I succeeded. Which is what you have to do when you're learning the Souls formula for the first time, especially when you have no prior or have limited, we'll say, prior experience in 3D role-playing games. I was mostly familiar with two-dimensional role-playing games, for example. Bit of a different sort of kettle of fish when you bring it into the 3D, or the third dimension. Dark Souls came out in 2011. I was not immediately wanting to play the game because I didn't expect it to live up to my almost obsessive adulation for Demon Souls, which is to say that when I'm holding Demon Souls in such high regard, one would imagine that my expectations would be almost unfair for the next iteration in what had now become a series. And so with a sense of self-awareness, I said to myself, look, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much. And once I was comfortable in my own mind of that fact, I gave Dark Souls a try and realized it was just as good. And to this very day, I stand by the following point, which is that the release of Demon Souls and Dark Souls back to back in a series is one of the greatest miracles of video gaming history. The fact that those two games existed as they did, standing on their own, with Dark Souls actually not needing to draw from Demon Souls all that much to be one of the best games ever made, while simultaneously having Demon Souls be an incredible game on its own, really was just breathtaking. It was amazing to be there as it happened. And to experience both of those games and to become obsessed with those games at that time. And to have that really define who you were as a gamer back then and continue to define you as a gamer. This is context for the release of this game, in terms of how I'm going to describe how I reacted to it, how I felt about it for years afterwards, and how I eventually came to realize that my concerns, my wider concerns, were unfounded. Well, they actually were entirely legitimate, but then I realized that I didn't have to worry because From Software pulled their head out of their asses and realized what made a Souls game in a meaningful way. Dark Souls 2 came out, and the reaction to it was one of, okay, let me put it this way. I had never come across a person who had a negative thing to say about Dark Souls 2 in the first year of its release, and I was looking. I was really looking. I didn't really have too many friends from the Souls community, to be honest, so maybe if I had more friends from the Souls community, I would have found more people, or found someone at least. But the the game that I'm playing right now was not only critically acclaimed, but it was very, very highly appreciated among video gamers of the time. It was a fairly well-known game when it released. It was a fairly well-anticipated game prior to its release. And this was purely down to From Software's advertisement of the game. This was not down... I mean, I suppose you could say it was partially down to the fact that Dark Souls had already released on 3 platforms and had built up a small community, so there was some groundwork to work from. Like, you had a basis upon which to establish greater interest in this game, but the main point was that Dark Souls 2 was advertised to an extent that Demon Souls and the first Dark Souls simply hadn't been advertised. And that resulted in a great deal of attention. Most people in the video game community at least knew what Dark Souls 2 was when it came out. Perhaps not everyone played it, but a lot of people did. And what happened was you immediately had a new community established. This new community not only knew nothing of Demon Souls and Dark Souls, which therefore translates to mean they knew nothing of the formula, they also had no interest in learning what that was, which is typical. As much as I would like to draw comparisons to Monster Hunter World in the Monster Hunter series, I'd be doing that the whole way through and it would become really repetitive, so I'm going to hope that just me mentioning that will allow you to make these connections in your mind on your own, if you are a Monster Hunter player. These people who had no prior experience with the Souls series, and there was no expectation that they would have prior experience, it was the attitude that they had which made them so repugnant, not the lack of experience. When they played this game, it was literally a situation where you would talk about the first Dark Souls and they were confused and they say, "Don't you mean Dark Souls 2?" Like, there would be genuine confusion. They didn't even clock the fact that it was Dark Souls number 2, which means that there was at least one game that preceded it. There were in fact 2, but they actually didn't acknowledge the fact that Dark Souls 2 was not the first game in its own series. They just assumed that this was the only thing that you should play, the only thing that anyone ever should play, and as far as they were concerned, there was absolutely no reason why they should play anything other than Dark Souls 2. I say this because when I was essentially alone in ranting about how much they fucked this game up, absolutely trashed the formula, not only could people not see eye to eye with me in terms of the specific arguments about what was bad about the game, they had no possible way of seeing my complaints in the same context and the same, I guess, frame of reference as what I was seeing, what I was expressing, because I had actually played games that they had no desire or intention of playing themselves. For those of you who haven't personally experienced what I'm saying, which is basically that no one wanted to play those games, because maybe you started with Dark Souls 3, by which point a lot of people who had played Dark Souls 3 had played Dark Souls 2. Most of you will be aware, hopefully, that when the Dark Souls 1 remaster came out, most of those people had never played the original game. The original game came out in 2011, the remaster came out in 2018, and most of the people who played the remaster were playing it for the first time. The game didn't need a fucking remaster for you to play it. The point is that the new community, the new Souls community, could not actually go and seek out one of, I almost said the best, but we'll just be measured and say one of, the best gaming experiences of all time. I think everyone will happily admit that the first Dark Souls game was a huge bar-raising game changer that influenced the gaming community forever, video gaming forever, game design and development forever. And these fucking people needed a remaster of a 2011 game in 2018 to play this game, despite the fact that it was on 3 fucking platforms. The 3 major platforms of the time. Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC. This was the community that was playing Dark Souls 2, and continued to play Dark Souls 3. And it was because of those fucking people that I didn't trust anyone when it came to Dark Souls 3's quality. I knew for sure that these people would not give a trustworthy evaluation of Dark Souls 3, but it did turn out that I enjoyed Dark Souls 3 quite a lot, for reasons that often differ from other people that I speak with about Dark Souls 3, because I actually value different things. That's why I can talk about how bad Dark Souls 2 is, and then talk about how much I loved Dark Souls 3, and yet come across people who really didn't like Dark Souls 3 at all. Everyone values different things. But the thing with Dark Souls 2 was that nobody seemed to care that the formula had changed and that things were worse, because it was irrelevant. The past was irrelevant. And it was a lonely journey for a little while. I found out that all of a sudden a bandwagon had formed, which essentially led the whole of the gaming community to deride and condemn Dark Souls 2. I don't care why they came to that conclusion. I was happy that they came to that conclusion, and still am, but they certainly couldn't have done it on their own, because they refused to. They flatly refused to for years. And I completely divorced myself of that community. While I didn't have personal friends who played Souls, I definitely engaged with the community. But I disappeared. I disappeared from the Souls community at that point, because those people were fucking dead to me. The community had changed, and the general Souls player had been replaced with what was effectively a mainstream gamer who wouldn't know a good game if it smacked them across the back of the head. So that was the Dark Souls 2 experience. Why am I at peace with it now? The biggest aspect of me being able to, or rather the biggest factor relating to that would be that From Software didn't continue along the lines that frustrated me so much here in Dark Souls 3. When I came to realize that, I really was able to enjoy this game more, because I was at peace. I realized, well, you know, I can look at this in a vacuum, in its own frame. I can literally sit here and say that the series is not doomed. It's just this game. And then, at that point, I can enjoy it for what it is. And there are elements to it that I enjoy. But, yeah. Oh, by the way, I fucking hated Bloodborne 2. Oh! He just said it. He just said it. But it's true. I fucking hated that game. And I should say that much of the reason why... Let me at least mention this point. There are a lot of constructive reasons why I did not like Bloodborne when I first played it. But definitely the environment in which it released was why I really fucking hated Bloodborne. It was because this game had come out. Everyone playing this game that I could find didn't care about the games that came before it, had no desire to have an actual educated discussion as to how things improved or didn't improve in relation to this game, because they weren't prepared to actually consider the games that came before it. They literally didn't exist in their mind. Those very same people then jumped on to Bloodborne, and they're singing Bloodborne's praises. And I went and played Bloodborne, and really all I wanted at that point, because of what I had experienced with Dark Souls 2, was a Souls game. I didn't want Bloodborne. I didn't want something that sort of felt like a Souls game. I wanted a Souls game. And Bloodborne was fundamentally not a Souls game. It was a Souls-like. And it just so happened that the things that made Souls a proper Souls game within its own series were more important and better to me, in my opinion, than what Bloodborne was doing. In a lot of ways, there were so many things that I really intensely valued about the Souls formula that was simply not in Bloodborne, and because of when it released, I could not like that game. It was impossible. I was wounded and battered from the release of Dark Souls 2. I then played this game, which I was actually expecting to be along the lines of Demon Souls, because I remembered seeing how atmospheric it was when it first, had that. It was probably a tech demo of sorts where they were actually showing a very early version of the game, which was a little different to what actually released. This was when it still had its project name, which I've forgotten now. It wasn't called Bloodborne yet. When I saw that, it actually looked a little bit like Demon Souls in spirit. And so I thought, well, they're trying to tap into Demon Souls, so maybe it's going to be more along those lines, which would be very different to Dark Souls 2. But no, I just got something that wasn't Souls at all, which I should have prepared myself for, but I wasn't prepared for, and I didn't want that. And so, there were constructive reasons why I didn't like Bloodborne, which related to the fact that I prefer the Souls formula, but more than anything else, I didn't want Bloodborne at that time. The community of the Souls games didn't give a shit, because I can tell you now, the Souls formula didn't exist to them. What existed to them was Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne. And they're great video games. Oh, I like how hard Bloodborne is. It took me like 20 minutes to get past the first area. This is a great game. I'm gonna go and play some other random game now. I'm bored of Bloodborne. It was fun for 30 minutes. But I'm done now. I'm gonna play another 5 games this week. They're all different games, but they are all capable of entertaining me for about 15 minutes. That's the sort of people that I felt were playing Bloodborne and enjoying it at that time. People who weren't committed to a specific series, people who were just generic video gamers and had no sense of, well, they had no ability to evaluate Bloodborne in the way that I was, and I just needed some solidarity in the community with my viewpoint, but there was none of that. So anyway, Bloodborne is a controversial subject because I'm very much alone in disliking it as deeply as I do. Dark Souls 2, I still dislike for all the reasons that I disliked it in the past, but I'm at peace with it, as I said. So I'll actually play it now. I've had my little rant, and yeah. Anyway, I'm just trying to think where to go from here. Should I discuss one of the things that I actually do like about this game? Majula. I do actually like Majula. I think it's a good hub location. It has very nostalgic music. In fact, I spoke to a person who played Dark Souls 2 for the first time many years after it came out, and I said to him how nostalgic the Majula music was for me, and he said, hearing it for the first time, it does actually just sound nostalgic on its own. Without having heard it in the past, it has a nostalgic sound to it. So, yeah, it's iconic in my mind. It's very good, referring to the music itself, but also the atmosphere of it. It's very quiet. It's serene. And it's a reprieve from the world outside. That's what makes it a hub world, you see. it actually exists apart from everything else, and it really feels that way. Depressing Hogwarts, what? I'm just, I'm reading back through the chat because you guys have been talking a lot, but I had to focus on what I was talking about for various reasons. I don't really want to get sidetracked by the chat while I'm developing my thoughts on an important subject. Let me go and get a few things in Majula. I already got whatever was over there. I can't remember what it is now. I just do these things without thinking. It's second nature, I suppose you would say. Suppose I need to give that Estus Flask shard to the woman. Yes, I shall do that. Of course, I'm not a huge fan of life gems. I think my gripe with life gems is the fact that you can literally just buy them and use as many as you want, but for some reason the Estus Flasks had to be made really, really slow and inefficient compared to how they were in Dark Souls. So, to me, that was a change just for the sake of it. I think what they were going for was to try and prevent instantaneous healing or near instantaneous healing. But I think that maybe works nice in theory, but the practice of having to spend what feels like forever drinking an Estus Flask just feels terrible. This is the thing. You can accept it theoretically, but in practice, it slows things down in an awkward way. Look at this. Probably looks fairly normal to those of you who are familiar and used to this game. Familiar with and used to this game. But to me, even now, and especially when this game came out, that was just pathetically slow. In combat, it feels even worse. It's not so much whether or not it's a good idea, it's about the actual reality of engaging enemies in combat, how the enemies move, and then they're extremely pursuant, and then having to slowly get this fucking flask out. It's just awful. Basically, what it is designed to do is make it harder at the end of the day. I'd say much of what I don't like about Dark Souls 2 is how, at every level, they mindlessly try to increase difficulty to the detriment of a balanced and enjoyable gaming experience. Because to them, making the game harder in, quite honestly, obnoxious ways was more important than making a balanced game. Because the difficulty apparently was the point. Which it wasn't. Quite frankly, neither Demon Souls nor Dark Souls were extremely difficult games. They were very fair but strict. So, you know, once you learn how to play them, and once you had evaluated what was needed of you in any given situation properly, you'd be able to get through it. But here they were just more mindless about it. It wasn't sensibly designed at all. And rather than sit here and give you examples, I'm going to have this playthrough be the example. I'm going to develop these points as I engage enemies in combat, and I can talk about how the way enemies move and the way you move, how all of your animations are more slow and laborious, and how the enemies almost quickly run at you and pursue you and stick to you like glue, how that just feels like shit. It feels bad. Just the basics of combat do not feel nice. But anyway, I have at this stage acquired 2 Estus Flasks. I don't know if it's worth consuming these, probably not. My neck is being a little bit uncooperative at the moment. I should apparently visit the friendly pigs. I will not visit them. I think they can keep to their own devices and I'll keep to mine. I haven't recently played this game, I have to say. So I need to work out what I want to do in the early game here. Fire BNS doesn't actually relate to faith, it relates to intelligence. The relevance of that point is that you can get a fire longsword in the early game. And honestly, that fire longsword in the early game really is part of the reason why intelligence-focused builds are so unreasonably strong in Dark Souls 2. It's definitely not the entire reason, but it contributes to that. Faith builds relate to lightning BNS. And also dark, but not in all circumstances. And, yeah. There's nothing really in the early game that jumps out at me as having lightning BNS, so... yeah, we'll just continue on with the mace, I suppose, and then I'll feel my way through the game. I'm happy to do that. You do tend to get backseat gamers because they think you don't know how to play the game when you do, but that's an irrelevant point. They actually just want to show off their own expertise, to stroke themselves. But what I do say is that I'm not in need of that. It's actually a good point Brett uses, because the profile that I made in this version of the game... okay, take it easy. The profile that I made in this version of the game, the first character, is a power stance build. Or a build that I intended to use in conjunction with the power stance system, because it is fun to use. It is unique to this game, and is one of those things that makes this game worth revisiting. So, I enjoy it. I will go and get that item down there. I will now take this opportunity to discuss the original game versus Scholar of the First Sin. I was so displeased with this game that I stopped playing it before Scholar of the First Sin came out. In fact, I stopped playing it before the first DLC of the original game released. I had made my evaluation of Dark Souls 2, and I was not playing it anymore. And I basically kept my word until 2016, at which point I decided to do some Let's Plays of it on this channel. But yeah, the Scholar of the First Sin release, unbeknownst to me, was very different. I honestly thought Scholar of the First Sin was just all of the DLC preloaded onto the game as a modern release of Dark Souls 2 at that time. But it wasn't. It was literally a Dark Souls 2 randomizer, but on one setting. So it randomizes it once, and then that's the game. They basically generated a randomized version of the first one and then released that. That's what it felt like. Whether or not that's how they did it might be up for debate, but probably not. I'd say that it was crafted. I'm sure that they actually sat down and decided where all of the enemies would be. Well, it's like a mob randomizer, I should say. It's not like you actually get... No, it's not just mobs, actually. Even drops change. Locations of items change, I think. Not in all circumstances, but in some, certainly. So to call it exclusively a mob randomizer wouldn't be accurate either. It feels as if it randomizes a lot of things. What it does in effect is come across as that, but it does change a lot of things. And there's no rhyme or reason to it as far as I'm concerned. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. And I don't like it. I played it. It was different to what I played in the past, and I saw no real reason for it to be different. It didn't add anything to the experience. Certain things were just made different that, in fact, detracted from the experience, like how that section of the Forest of Fallen Giants is really, really dark in the Scholar of the First Sin version of the game, but is normal in the other one, and there's no real sensible reason for it to be extremely dark, because I guess there's no natural light in there, but it still doesn't feel quite natural that it suddenly becomes so dark because of how the light effects work in this game. It seemed like a change that had been shoehorned in just in reference to that particular change that just detracted from the experience. It didn't improve anything. It was just bad. The whole Scholar of the First Sin version of Dark Souls 2 is bad. I will likely play it in this series here, but I don't think I'm going to be playing it anytime soon. Don't expect it anytime soon. I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to partake in the original Dark Souls 2 on PC until I'm positively bored out of my bones of the original version. Then I might play Scholar of the First Sin once in this series. Then I'm just going to return to this. Because quite frankly, if I'm bored of playing Dark Souls 2, I'll just play a different game. That makes more sense to me. Oh, let's use my Estus Flask. Am I going to be killed while drinking it? Oh, no, he's not. A miracle occurred, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even know what I'm doing. You can probably see that I'm playing very lazily. I'm not even targeting the enemies, actually. Whoa. That's a really useless flailing mace that you've got there, Doomlink. It swings at the enemy, but it doesn't quite make contact with them for reasons that, quite frankly, would mystify the most learned of Souls players. It's just a fucking useless weapon, quite frankly. I don't mind the mace for the early game, like I said earlier on. It's high damage for an early game weapon, but there's an inconvenience associated with its use, and that is its limited range. So, you have to balance the inconvenience with the convenience, and establish for yourself whether or not it's worth it. For me, at this stage, it's worth it. I don't mind it. I'll pour my next cider. I've got my third one in the fridge, actually. I've only got 3 today, but it's fine. My cider today is Mercury Cider. I should have said this earlier on. For various reasons, I just have not been able to have a standard recording. It's just... There are a few things that didn't go right before I actually began the VOD that you guys saw. And there were edits in that VOD too. I'm referring to the VOD that people are watching in the future. Not you guys watching live now. I'm talking about the people on YouTube. Yeah, this VOD really was a bit of a nightmare. So I didn't really get to introduce my cider to you. It's Mercury Cider. It's my favourite cider. It's very nice. It's a Tasmanian cider. Those of you who can get it in international countries, I would advise you to get it. It's quite tasty. Outside of my cider, I also wanted to mention that, and this is actually topical because I ended up getting on my Scholar of the First Sin discussion, which has probably just about reached its conclusion. Twitch, extraordinarily, does not have a separate choice for Scholar of the First Sin. I kind of understand it. The idea is that they don't want to split the viewership across 2 versions of the game, because maybe that's unfair to people who are playing, for example, the original version, and then they'll get no viewers because everyone would rather watch Scholar of the First Sin. It may actually be the reverse of what I just said, and I hope that it's the reverse of what I just said, because Scholar of the First Sin is terrible. But, you know, maybe it makes sense that people shouldn't have to choose between one or the other. But to me, they are completely different games, and I think a person watching Dark Souls 2 on Twitch should be able to select the version that they want to see, because they are notably different. Let me give you an example of why me giving Twitch the benefit of the doubt on this point is totally inappropriate. I'm basically fighting the battle for them, but they've already lost the battle. On Twitch, there is a choice for Dark Souls Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition, and Dark Souls Remastered. All three of those fucking versions are not even close to being as different from one another as Scholar of the First Sin is different to its original version. It's not my fucking job to establish game categories on Twitch, but apparently I can do it better than whoever has been tasked with that job. There is no expertise associated with this ability to evaluate what makes a distinct version, or a distinctive version, of a game that's worth being called, or referred to as its own separate game category, or marked as such. It's closer to being common sense than anything else, but apparently this is beyond Twitch's ability or capacity. They're fucking useless. Idiots. Wastes of space, the whole lot of them. An embarrassment to the video gaming community that we all sit back and accept. Because we're all, quite frankly, an embarrassment ourselves. Anyway. Mercury Hard Cider is possibly cider you have had before. I don't know how many other countries have Mercury Hard Cider, but it's very nice. Don't drink it expecting it to be really hard cider, but don't drink it expecting it to be really light cider. I've definitely gotten through... Okay, if you drink a 6-pack of Mercury Hard Cider, you'll be having a night, because it's heavy. Typically because it is very easy to drink, you're going to drink it faster, so that amount of alcohol being consumed at that speed is really going to put you in a state. And yeah, it's very tasty, very smooth, very nicely made. Mercury Hard Cider is brilliant. I was really surprised by it when I first had it, because it's in this very nondescript, retro-looking can. I say retro-looking to say that it doesn't look at all appealing to the eye. You know, in the past, there was no consideration given to what made an attractive-looking beer container, whether it be a bottle or a can. It just, it just looked the way it looked, and you could either take it or leave it. And that's what Mercury Hard Cider looks like. It looks really generic and honestly bad, just at first blush, but it's very good. And I'm glad that I tried it, because, I don't know. To some people, cider is cider. And to an extent it is, there's never a really bad cider. I've had cider that I don't like all that much. But there's never a really bad cider. Maybe there is, and I just haven't had the displeasure of trying one, but it turns out there are some ciders that really stand out from all the others, and I'd say Mercury Hard Cider would be one. This is probably the king of smooth and tastefully sweet cider, and then there are some that are very, very nice as exceptionally sweet ciders. And then obviously you've got your peach ciders, and then other types of cider also, made with different fruit. Not all ciders are created equal. And quite frankly, there are different flavours of Mercury cider as well. So you needn't commit to apple. We are now here in a bonfire, or in a location that has a bonfire that I've forgotten the name of. It's the something. It is in the Forest of Fallen Giants. The location, it's Cardinal Tower, there you go. There's no way I was going to remember that. For a second I thought I was going to read that name and say to myself, oh, how could you forget that? No, I can really imagine how I forgot that. It's because I have no recollection of that name. I'm sure I knew it very well in the past, because this is a bonfire that you do return to later on, but remember in the days when you could throw a firebomb at the wall and break through it? God, I miss those days. It is so annoying to break through that wall now. Truly terrible. Where should I go? I suppose just for completionist's sake. Or for completionism's sake. I don't... yeah. For the sake of being a completionist, we could say. I don't know, maybe speaking English could be nice. At any rate. For the sake of completing this area, we'll go over here. I'm playing very just casually, feeling my way through Dark Souls 2, relearning the taste of the game. And it's fine for now. I'm not immediately grossed out by the feeling of it. I've played it enough in my life to be able to play it and then say to myself, well, that's Dark Souls 2, this is how it feels, and I'm comfortable with it. Even if I'm used to a different Souls game, I can play this and I'll be alright. But it did take a little bit of time. Whenever I would return to this game years ago, ugh, it felt so bad. It's a feeling. It's how you interact with the game. It's truly unpleasant. Oh yeah, I really have no good reason to be using life gems because I do have a heal miracle at the moment. I should also mention that it would be unwise to expect me to conduct this faith build character progression in a well-informed way. I don't remember how to do a faith build in Dark Souls 2. No recollection of it. I don't remember where the miracles are, I don't remember where the weapons are, I don't remember any of that. Just feeling my way through it. It's been a long time. So just be patient with me, and don't backseat play. I don't mind a little bit of that, but don't literally play my build for me, please. I'm quite content just making my way through. And when I feel like consulting a wiki, I will. Hopefully not the Fextra Life one though, because the Fextra Life wiki is shit. In all respects. Yes, I know about you, that's why I'm facing my camera towards the... Oh, that's right. I forgot it's Dark Souls 2, you don't get an invulnerability period while you open chests. I like how that guy failed to dispatch me and just immediately gave up. He understood that the result was inevitable. And that was that he was going to lose his life, not me. Sorry, I've kept my glass on camera there. If I ever do... Well, actually no, I'm not going to burden my viewers with telling me to move my glass if it remains on camera. It never works when I do things like that. You guys never notice and you never care, so... I have to be responsible for my own visual appearance in the game. And in the live stream. In the live stream, mainly. I'm technically not in the game. I'm on top of the game. I exist separate to the game itself, you see. I think I need a bit more poise. Oh, what was that? It's a prime example of the mace just being unforgivingly low range. Yeah, okay, congratulations. I can't allow myself to get hit by a firebomb there. Apparently I can, because that just happened. I was anticipating that I'd be able to flinch him out of actually throwing that before it could make contact with me, but that is not how that transpired. I wasn't worried about dying because I would only lose a tiny amount of health, and my souls would be very close to this bonfire that I'd previously rested at. So there really was no negative consequence for that eventuality. Talk to Melentia until she leaves is the advice that I give to you, because she does move to Majula. She just mentioned that she's going to pick up and move, which I would like for her to do. I will purchase Leningrad's key now. When I said that, I intended to select the yes option. What's this? Heal? We've already got that. I should mention, and those of you who have seen me do a faith build before, and I don't think there are many of you who have seen that, expect me to almost never use heal miracles. It's not because I'm too good for heal miracles, it's not because I think it's a bad thing to use heal miracles, it's entirely because I'm not used to having them, and so I forget about them. When I need to heal, I'm used to looking at my Estus flasks, and in the case of this game, my life gems. But yeah, I'll have to try and think about it, and remember that I do have access to heal miracles. Later on in the game, I'm not actually going to have access to them because I naturally, from what you can tell, after having mentioned that, prioritize offensive miracles over healing miracles because I don't see a need for them. I don't need healing outside of my standard healing wares for any other build that I do, so why would I need them for a faith build? Unless I was seeking to use miracles that heal in a supporting capacity. But I'm not seeking to do that. I think you can play online in this game again now, by the way. This game got an update. So, I think it actually can play online. Although, I am alive and I'm not seeing any summon signs. So maybe I can't play online. Let's find out. How do I get the white sign in this game again? I can't even remember. Good God. Doesn't matter. There's nothing I can really do. I'm assuming... No, I am online. It connected me to the servers. So I am online, and this game can play online. In fact, I can see a person sitting at the bonfire. We're under control. You can play online in this game again. There was a long period of time where you couldn't, and we all know about that. I needn't discuss that in any detail. As for the mace, obviously it's pretty good at the moment. There's really no need for me to get anything better. I shockingly can't use the Fire Longsword. I will use the Fire Longsword against the Pursuer boss appearance over that way, because the range of this mace is not going to be appropriate for that fight. The damage is lovely, but the fire damage of the Fire Longsword is going to be a little better overall. So that, coupled with the range of the Longsword, is going to be much better than the mace for use with the Pursuer boss. But, yeah, just thinking if there's anything else I can do in preparation for that boss fight. I do actually need to go and level up, so I will do that now. I'll level up with the lady. What's her name? Emerald Herald. The fact that I remembered that name is an absolute miracle. I don't know how I did it. But I did. My dexterity is 5. I need 9 dexterity to be able to use that longsword. Do you know what that means, ladies and gentlemen? You know precisely what that means. It means that I have to use this fucking mace against the Pursuer. I can't believe it. That's a nightmare. Let's open Leningrass's fucking door. Do I have... God, what's the upgrade material called in this game? Let's just say Titanite for good... It probably is Titanite, to be honest. In fact, I think it is, yeah. But what I was actually going to say was that I'm hesitant to upgrade this mace because I need to consider what I would like to use after this mace stops being good unupgraded. So I don't think I actually want to upgrade this mace in reality. I think I'd be better off without doing that. I may as well talk to Leningrass. Yeah, okay. I actually don't need your services right now, so... I don't particularly care that you can get back in there. He's got nothing in there anyway. He doesn't have food in there, he doesn't have a bog in there, he doesn't have anything that would resemble a home in there. It's just a workshop, so... Yeah, he actually is only to go in there to serve me. So he can do whatever he wants. He can go in there or he can not at this point in the game because I don't need him. Why'd you get his key then, Doomlink? Well, because I'd like to allocate the souls now and then not have to worry about it in the future. The sooner I divorce myself of 1,000 souls to get that key, the less I have to worry about it. Alright. With that... Oh yes, I will kill you guys, because if I don't, you'll pursue me. I'm about to fight something that will pursue me, actually, because he's called the Pursuer. But, yeah, he's a funny boss, the Pursuer. He's very fair. He's a very fair boss in that when you learn how to fight him, he's not hard. But I suppose if you don't know how to fight him at all, he can be crushingly difficult and he'll destroy you. But there's a pattern to him. A very sensibly designed pattern. Here we go. So, I do want to keep that fellow over there on the wall alive. I want him to throw a firebomb at those barrels over there, which contain oil. Stop it! So that I can actually access the bonfire from up here. But more specifically, I want to be able to get easy access to the Pursuer fight over there. Alright, throw your firebomb. Do it. Don't be shy. You motherfucker. What's crazy is that it feels as if the firebomb actually tracks you. But it doesn't, it's just that he will only have the firebomb. How do I phrase this? The split second the firebomb is thrown is where it will be, where it will land. Motherfucker. Your accuracy's bad, by the way. You've undermined the legitimacy of what I've said. I hate you so much. Ugh, pretty tempted to just go and buy a firebomb. Do I have one on hand? I do. Oh well, I'll fucking throw one. Let's see. Oh, I'm a little bit worried about it because I did destroy some of those barrels, but I think I can actually get them detonated. I just have to throw it right. I can't mess it up. Throw your fucking firebomb and then hopefully I can get this on target. There you go, very good. Fucking firebomb. Alright, that's how you want to do it. Forget that guy throwing his firebomb. In fact, I have a distinct feeling that they've changed his accuracy to make it harder to get it on target with these barrels here. I have a memory of having that work, but it just doesn't anymore, so at least not with the sort of reliability that it used to, so at this stage, I think you'd be better off using your own firebomb. So what you can actually do... Stop it. What you can do is, the first time you engage the... No, I'm not doing that. I'm not losing that much health before I fight the Pursuers, it's stupid. The Pursuer, it's not Pursuers plural, it's just If I ever say Pursuers instead of Pursuer, it's because I'm getting confused with the spell from the original Dark Souls. It's the one that was renamed Affinity in the later games. Probably just this one. And I think that was a Hex. Dark magic was changed to hexes in this game, which makes sense. It's its own little stat. Yeah, alright. Congratulations. How insufferable. Get over here, man. Yeah, alright. You win, motherfucker. No, apparently you need to take half an hour to do your shield break attack. Character. I hate you with the passion of 1,000 suns, you stupid motherfucker. Split your skull open. Let's try that again. I want to engage the pursuer with all the Estus flasks that I naturally have after resting in the bonfire. Yeah, fine. Let's try that again. I hate these enemies, I really do. I'm just trying to be a perfectionist about it. I'm not used to going two-handed against enemies with a super short-range weapon. It's a bit of a new experience. It's not entirely new. It's just that I don't actually have builds like this, where I consider that to be a legitimate stratagem. Alright, let's actually start targeting enemies. How about that? I don't know why I've been so averse to targeting enemies thus far. Yeah, okay. Good for you. Alright, so how this works is when you climb this ladder and reach the top, if your intention is to kill the pursuer boss before actually engaging him in the regular boss confrontation, you have to do it this time, like that first time you reach the top of the ladder, because he will never come again in this spot. You can only at that point, or after that point, engage him in his boss room, which some people do anyway, because you can actually cheese him with siege weaponry. That's very much Monster Hunter terminology. Basically, there's some sort of mechanical apparatus, a large crossbow. I can't remember what it's called. It's, you know, giant crossbow thing. Actually, I should heal myself with a soul gem. I will have time to kill that guy in the corner over there once I get to the top. I just don't want him to interfere in any way. In fact, having him down there will be just fine. Let's see how we go with limited range. I actually... yeah, well, whatever. I need to actually pay attention. I'm not going to talk during this fight. Oh, that's not good. Oh, look at that fucking range. It's just awful. The damage that the mace deals is quite attractive. That particular attack does not require a roll as long as you're close enough to him. It's better not to roll because you remain on target with him. And within range, I should say. More specifically. Oh, look at that fucking crap. You can't... You see, you wouldn't be able to track an enemy, would you? That's just... It's too easy. I don't really want to go in for that attack. The range there is better than you'd expect, to be honest. Oh, I pressed the button to roll, but apparently it didn't register. Shouldn't have done that. What a stupid idea! What a stupid idea to do that. It's just... I would have been able to get away with it in any other fucking Souls game, but not this one, because this is how you drink Estus. Like you've got a physical issue. Some sort of mechanical inability, or... I don't know. What the fuck? It doesn't matter. I don't need the Ring of Blades early on. It's nice to have, but... whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm used to being able to kill him first try because it's normal. You just do it. He's an easy fight, but... I should have just used life gems. That's what I always do when I have to heal during his fight, because it's not worth inviting the risk of consuming Estus, but I wanted to give it a try because, I don't know, I thought that I'd invite the risk, but that resulted in death. Fine, I don't care. I've said this with the first Dark Souls and I'll say it here. I can't allow myself to compare my current level of skill in playing this game with my previous level of skill, because I don't play Souls regularly anymore. I become rusty, and I will never play as well as I did then, so there's no fucking point. I actually don't know how many Souls I had on hand there, so I'm just gonna... I will go back and get them, it's just, it's too annoying to do that now, so... I'll get them later. Hello. I'm just mashing him to death quickly, so... yeah, alright. Look who's pursuing me. There's an enemy over there. Thing is, if I'm going two-handed and mashing enemies, I really would like a different sort of weapon. I'd very much prefer a shield, you know. Oh yeah, I do have heal miracles. What am I doing? Of course, life gems blah, 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 would still be preferable in the pursuer fight, because heal miracles are too slow. You don't use heal miracles in combat, do you? Silly idea. Getting a bit sick of your shield though, mate. He's actually turtling me right now. I'm trying to fight this prick. Get over here. He's not even engaging. Oh my god, how... You had almost no time to make that decision, but you did it, didn't you? Immediately rolled on your back because I happened to be behind you in that split second. Ugh. Who has the fucking patience? Yeah, die. I thought there was an enemy over here. Apparently not. Oh, there is! I knew there was, but I actually couldn't see him. I thought he was a corpse, but he was just playing dead as they do. See, he is designed to come and attack you from behind when you go up here and get this halberd. Yeah, whatever, I'm mashing you because I have no respect for you as an enemy. Get it? Oh, he actually drops down from above. I was wrong. I actually thought that you would get ambushed by the person who attacked me there. That's not how that works. I pressed the button to roll before your initial stabbing touched me, but apparently it was slightly behind. Otherwise I would have rolled. Either that or my controller refused to respond to my input. Something like that. Oh god, it's hard enough to kill these guys under normal circumstances. Yep, okay. Just bounce off the fucking wall. Yeah, I know you're gonna disappear. I know how you operate. I hate crystal lizards in this game. Absolutely despise them. I hate them with untold passion. The large leather shield is down here. I don't want it. Well, I suppose I could use it. Does it weigh me down all that much? No. Oh, that's right. I can't even fucking one hand with this stupid mace anyway. Forget it. I have thought better of it. Alright. I'm going to return to the bonfire. This has created a shortcut. I will get my previous souls back because I actually don't remember how many I had on hand. I think it was about 1,500, probably more actually, because I did kill those enemies a number of times, which would have resulted in some form of souls accumulation. And, yeah, I think it would be good to get them back. Is it wise to run through the enemies if I intend to climb the ladder? Not at all. Not at all. I almost got punished for it. But my lack of interest in the entire situation after having failed to kill the pursuer has placed me in a position where I'm taking unnecessary risks, I suppose. I've still got a decent amount of souls. I've got 4,500 4,500 souls. That is a lot more than I was expecting to have after picking up what I'd left behind from that boss confrontation. So, not having successfully killed the pursuer boss feels a little less painful, because I've still got a lot of souls to level up right now. But I'm going to actually wait until I've killed the first boss before leveling up. I think that would be the smart way to go about it. The boss of this location is not actually the Pursuer. While you do engage the Pursuer earlier here, he is a boss that comes after the actual boss at this point in the game. Yeah, go away. Bastard. Oh no, you're following me. This boss is not very difficult. If that enemy chases you, he can probably prevent you from entering into there. It's not guaranteed, but it's entirely possible. What I was going to say was that this boss is quite easy. As far as first bosses go, he's probably pretty well designed, a little bit challenging, a little unpredictable. More than anything else, he's intimidating because he's a big boss. But if, like me, you have fought the last giant, well, no, this is the last giant. If you fought the giant from that memory where you farm him for souls with Bonfire Ascetic, yeah, there's nothing about this thing that is difficult. You just become so used to dealing with giants and how they operate that, yeah, no challenge. I find it easier to not target because you have a little more control over your camera position. You can see that generally, like, there's more going on in this fight than most early bosses, and I would comfortably call this the first major boss of the game. It's better to say first boss, because, to be honest, if I say major boss, that comes across as being a lot more subjective than it actually is. This is the first boss of the game. Ow. Doesn't deal much damage incidentally. But he's, like I say, got quite a bit going on. A little unpredictable, very intimidating. If you don't actually know what's going on with the fight, I ran out of stamina because I'm being very lazy. He's actually difficult to get a handle of. Get a handle on? When you first fight him. In the very early part of the game. The last giant. Well, that was a rather unceremonious dispatching of the last of that creature's kind. It was a bit of a shame, actually. Up we go. I report to all of you that my soul counter reads 14,590. That was some attempt at a backstab. There are no backstabs, there are back attacks in this game, by the way. You will notice that they really tried to change how backstabs work in this game compared to Demon Souls and Dark Souls. It used to be that as soon as you lined up with an enemy and they're back, you would immediately enter a backstab animation if you pressed the attack button, but in this game, you really need to commit to it. You have to press the button twice, you have to line up perfectly, as there is a process associated with it. You can still backstab fairly reliably online when you're attacking invading phantoms and engaging in a PvP system, like an agreed confrontation between other players, but it's nothing like it was in the first Dark Souls, at least. The original Demon Souls was a bit awkward in how backstabs visually appeared, but Dark Souls was very smooth. Sadly, it was a little too easy to backstab in that game, so even though I really didn't like how backstabs worked in this game when I first played it, I can respect the decision to make it harder more now, because it doesn't feel like just another complaint being compounded by basically everything else that I hated about Dark Souls 2 at that time. How high can I walk up on this? Should I write a message on this thing? No, probably not. That's not exciting enough. I don't believe that I used the soul of the last giant for anything, so I'm going to consume it for the souls in the early game, which I deem to be useful. Of course, I have to keep reporting my soul counter number to you because I'm in the way of it, and I don't mind doing that. I would prefer to be on this side of the screen than on the other side of the screen. And I don't mind telling you how many souls I've got. We've got 25,370, which is pretty good. Off we go. Back to Majula. It's a little weird to not be able to level up at the bonfire. But I understand that they want you to return to Majula. It's just a changing of game function alongside the warp system. But, well, let me rephrase this. The fact that the warp system was introduced from the beginning has resulted in small changes to how the game functions, and one such example would be how you have to actually level up with an NPC at a location that you can very easily warp to. So, I don't mind it.
Bearer of the curse.
It's not the sort of thing that would wash these days, because you know how gamers are these days. Oh, gamers, not just gamers, but people. They eat and breathe convenience. Any level of inconvenience is intolerable to the extreme. So, yeah, I enjoy this. It feels meaningful, and I think it's fine. Alright, this is actually a bit of a moment of truth. I can't level up a crazy number of times, but I'm in the early game, so my choice of stats to increase will affect probably more now as far as my general gaming experience than it will in the future. So each time I level up, that is to say. Endurance at 3 is so painful to look at that... Let me just see, okay, I can get up to soul level 30, that's pretty good with one level up session. Let's get you to 8. 8 is still fucking terrible, but an increase from 3 is, yeah, needed. Dexterity to 9. Not because the longsword requires 9 dexterity, although it is tempting to use that thing. The fire longsword, that is to say. But because dexterity is important, and 9 is a good number. If that's what's required for the longsword, that's probably a sensible starting dexterity requirement for most basic weapons of the game. So I do want some dexterity. There is a temptation to go for strength-focused weapons, but even strength-focused weapons do have dexterity requirements. The reason why the mace has almost nothing in the way of a dexterity requirement is because it is such a useless, silly weapon. It's pure blunt force. It's this short stick thing, and you just look at your character swinging it around and you can see how uncoordinated it is. He looks like an idiot. And quite frankly, depending on where the enemy is in relation to you, even if you seem to be close, you can just totally miss when you swing at him. It's a dumb weapon. There is no dexterity associated with its use. Not in terms of the in-game skill, but in terms of the actual meaning of the word dexterity. You do not appear to be all that dexterous, nor adroit in the use of weaponry when you swing the mace around. So, it makes sense that there's no dexterity requirement. But, what is this bear crap you people are talking about? I actually don't know. Some Souls community crap that I know nothing about. It didn't exist when I was a Souls fan. Well, I'm still a Souls fan, but again, left the Souls community in 2014. Anyway, whatever it is, you may or may not see it, we'll see. Dexterity to 9. Which leaves me with 7 more points. Yep, faith to 15 makes sense. Obviously, vitality will be increased in due time. The question now is whether I want to whether or not I want to prioritize vigor or strength. Probably strength. But this is important. Do I need my faith build to be strength focused? There's no requirement for that. Obviously, traditionally speaking, faith builds make use of strength because there are a lot of faith weapons in the earlier games that are very heavy, have high strength requirements, like the Grant, for example. But come to think of it, the Grant really wasn't functionally a faith-based weapon. It just was used by characters in the story that were faith characters, I guess, or clerics, or whatever. I suppose cleric, yeah. So yeah, the Grant is probably not a great example of that, but it's part of why strength is often accompanied by faith, or vice versa. Oh, I see. I like how you say bro as if it's obvious. It's not obvious. I read what you say as actually meaning something. I don't relate it to what I have heard in the game. Anyway. Am I actually happy with having a strength-focused sort of build? Well, what would be an alternative approach? In this game, I seem to associate lightning damage with the lance weapon type, because you've got spears and you've got lances. Is that correct? I think so. I obviously know that there's a separate weapon type to spear, which is very similar to spear, but I hope I've got the terminology correct, because obviously lances are from Monster Hunter. I just hope that my memories aren't getting crossed, or wires relating to my memory are being crossed. I think it's lance. In which case, well, first and foremost, I don't know why I'm associating thunder damage with that. Maybe there is a thunder lance of some kind that you can get. Maybe it's the one that the weird guardian-looking people have. The knights, the pale knights. I think one of them drops a lightning spear. Excuse me, a lightning lance, as I've referred to it. Which is not necessarily strength-focused. What do I do? What do I do? Some may laugh at me agonizing over stat allocations in a game where you can actually reallocate your stats. I don't, like, that's not built into me. I build my characters as if I only get one chance. And that's the best way to do it, to be honest. Well, in my mind. Because I've probably built more I've definitely built more characters in Demon Souls and Dark Souls combined than any other Souls game. And it's not even close. It's actually sad that I had to consider whether or not that was true. I've even built more games in Dark Souls, built more characters in Dark Souls than any other Souls game, including Demon Souls combined. So, yeah, stat reallocation doesn't exist in my heart and soul. But maybe it does mean I can shape up, as Leningrast would say. Not Leningrast, what's his name? Gilligan. as Gilligan would say. That's not Gilligan. It's the other guy. It's the blacksmith. It's the How ridiculous am I? Just goes to show how jumbled your memories can become. It's the other blacksmith, not Leningrad. I was part of the way there. But then I went and mentioned Gilligan, and that was just... that was where things really turned for the worst. Yeah, let's just go with this. Fuck it. Don't agonize over it, Doom. You can reallocate eventually. Although I don't like giving myself a reason to continue using this piece of shit. This stupid mace. Which is currently dealing... oh, I was gonna say. Yeah, 176 damage. For some reason my chime, I think it is. Yeah, why is my chime dealing 256 damage? What's going on with that? If I smack someone in the face with this stupid candlestick, you're telling me that that's going to deal 256 damage? What? That's ridiculous. I don't know if I can believe that. Maybe I should just use this instead. I'm just going to do that. Something I do like to actually do is kill Pate very early on and get Pate's spear, but I don't want to do that for this build. It's something I don't... well, I shouldn't say that. It's something I didn't see people do back when I watched people play Dark Souls 2, and that was so long ago that it's irrelevant. Yeah, I don't think it's a common strategy. It might be, but... yeah, Pate's spear is a good spear. It requires like 30 dexterity, so it wouldn't be appropriate for this build, I don't think, because I do want some kind of strength ability. I want my character to possess some strength ability, but... what do I do? I'm actually agonizing after having made my level up over whether or not, or after having finalized my level up, whether or not I want to actually use strength-based weapons. Something that I don't like to do is use weapons that make use of strength in a small way, because committing heavily to a stat is the best way to deal lots of damage. You either commit heavily to dexterity, heavily to strength, or you just use weapons that are very strong on their own without the need for stat bonuses. So, I don't know, I'm somewhat at a loss at the moment. I don't remember how I usually do faith builds in Dark Souls 2. So, as I said before, I'm just going to have to feel my way through it a little bit. What would I like to do now? Would I like to go to No Man's Wharf or take on the Pursuer? I need to remember how to actually get to the Pursuer. I can't remember. Very occasionally I do forget how to get to him. I think I remember how, but I forgot where to get the key for it. Where is that key? I think I know where. No, that's the key to the manor. I'll get the key to the manor, seeing as I'm thinking of that. The manor in Majula. Because if I forget to get it, which I likely will, then I'll end up having to get it in the future, which is... yeah, so... remember when I said that every aspect of Dark Souls 2 is mindlessly made harder? Well, that would be one such example. Falling damage. There's nothing about that fall that should realistically have killed me, but it's Dark Souls 2. Oh, everything about the game's just a little bit harder, but not in a creative way. More like in an obnoxious and pathetic sort of way. Stop it. Anyway, there's nothing about that fall that should have killed me. What a joke. Perhaps if I had been at full health it would have been okay. But still, it's not like I had lost much of my health. Okay. Oh, I can one-hand my weapon. How lovely. Question. Can I get... no, I don't think I can. I think I'm getting confused with Scholar of the First Sin. That shield that has 100% physical block that you can access by falling into the whatever it's called, Forest of Fallen Giants sort of area. Hurry up, boulder. Doesn't matter. That was very abstract what I just said. Very obscure. But I'll work it out in due time. Why cartography, you ask? I don't know if that's how he sounds. That was a guess. Give me the fucking key. Yes.
What a joy.
Good for you. Do I have a homeward bone? Oh god. Is it worth it? No. You never know, I may really need one in the future, so I'm just going to leave that homeward bone there in my inventory. And when a scenario eventuates where I really need to get back to the bonfire, and to not do so would be pure misery, I will have that homeward bone there. I can handle manually returning. Oh, why did I do that? Obviously a lack of understanding of where I am and what I'm doing. Here we go. This is where we want to go. This is the route. Running through a lot of enemies, but to be honest, they're not giving enough souls for it to be worth engaging them right now. Sit on the ground. And, I'm trying to think of where that key is. Fuck. Normally I can remember where it is. It's the key that opens the locked door over here, for example. Not that door. Fuck. I'm so misplaced. That's embarrassing. Okay, the door that links to... It's like the lower cardinal tower sort of thing. It's my best way of describing it. Sort of like the lower undead berg key of traditional Dark Souls. I don't know, I'll remember at some point. I'm sure I haven't a doubt in my mind that I'll remember at some point. But in the meantime, I'm going to go and get another cider. It will be my last one. And I will also visit the little boy's room. I'll be back with you all momentarily. I'm back. It's not as hot now, hot and humid, as it was when I first began this recording. I'm feeling slightly less uncomfortable. Slightly less because I'd say it's slightly less humid and hot than it was before, but it's noticeably less so. But I'm about to make things a little easier on myself by downing, maybe not downing, consuming, we'll say. That's a more sensible term. Like a nice cold beverage. Another mercury cider. Notice how it's not actually flipped. That is because I'm on the right side of the screen, where the view is not flipped, which is appropriate for Souls games and other games, but not for Monster Hunter. Most of you are used to seeing me on the left side, because I mostly record Monster Hunter, so... Just thinking about what to do next. Find that stupid key. I have to rack my brain and try to remember where it is. Where do I often go in the early game? That's essentially how I work it out. Or how I will end up working it out. Thinking about where I usually go in the early game. Where have I yet to go? Obvious places that I usually go, or that I imagine that I must go in order to progress. Not optional places, in other words. Pate's area isn't required, is it? Maybe it is. Well, we'll try Pate's area. I was thinking of where to get that key. I suppose the first thing that I could check is whether or not I've got the key. You never know, I may have actually picked it up without paying attention. Oh, I did actually pick it up. I think you... Oh, that's what it is. You get it at the conclusion of the last giant boss fight. Okay, so I do have it. We can actually go and fight the Pursuer now. Let's just do it. We're going to do it with limited health. We're just going to do the whole thing. Doesn't matter. I'll use a heal miracle before the fight and everything. Because I don't care. I have the soldier key, which is precisely what I thought I didn't have, but in fact had. And so there was nothing to worry about at all. What I do have to worry about right now is whether or not I can engage this boss without being attacked by enemies, yet simultaneously using the heal miracle. Oh my god, he is designed perfectly to pursue me and make my life a living hell. Except that he failed to prevent me from entering the fog. Hello. I'm two-handing, almost said two-manning my weapon, because a shield is not really going to help here in any situation, because I haven't the stamina to really effectively shield anything you do. I don't like it when you move that far away from me. You can see why, it's because my weapon sucks for that. Use the siege weaponry, Doom Link. No. This is not an optional boss, but you do have some control over when you actually fight him. If you consider him to be very hard now, at this stage in the game, you don't have to fight him now. The thing is that he's actually not hard at this stage in the game. It's just some people who fight him really struggle with it. One example, okay, remember when I said that I didn't have many friends who played Souls? One such friend was the guy that actually got into Souls that I did actually have playing Souls, basically. He did play Souls. And he played this game roughly when it came out, not immediately. He wasn't in a rush to play this game. but he did play it around that time. He had a real tough time with his boss. Now, what's the relevance of that? The relevance of it is that he is naturally good at video games, and I would say that he was naturally good with Souls. But he really had a tough time with his boss. Whereas I didn't especially have a tough time with him. But using him as an example, even back then, and I continue to use him as an example because I've actually not been part of the community since then, I imagine that there's a percentage of people who naturally struggle with his boss. So, to be honest, if he is difficult for you, for one reason or another, you don't have to fight him immediately. But if you really want to and you still find him hard, you can use these fucking things. Whatever. You do you, I suppose is what I would say. The Ring of Blades, which I just equipped, increases the damage of your attacks. And, that's pretty good. Could be worse. I'm about to find out if I can get that shield with 100% physical damage reduction. I can. There it is. 16 strength requirement. It just so happens that I'm very close to actually having 16 strength. Tantalizingly close, in fact. We'll head to the Lost Bastille first. I say Bastille, all of it. The only reason why I would want to say Bastille is because a Belgian beer that I enjoy is actually Castile. And I'm just going to say to you guys that for many, many years I've intended on playing Dark Souls 2 while drinking Castile so that I could say, I'm drinking Castile in the Bastille. But I have no real access to the Castile beer, so I can't imagine that happening anytime soon. So I don't mind sharing that information with you. It's funnier if I don't alert you to the fact that that is my intention. But to be honest, by the time I eventually do that, you will have long since forgotten this conversation that I'm having with myself. And apparently you, but not really you, because you're not responding. No, I'm not calling out the chat. You guys can sit there and enjoy my commentary in silence, I don't mind. But, yeah, drinking Castile in the Bastille will happen eventually. I certainly would have expected it to happen by now, but it hasn't. Even though I'm playing Dark Souls 2, so bad luck. Alright. We can actually, interestingly, no, actually, I think I'm thinking of Scholar of the First Sin. Yes, it's in Scholar of the First Sin, specifically, where you engage these shadowy versions of the Pursuer. I actually have to try and remember how the game used to be before Scholar of the First Sin, and I'm actually having to tap into fairly old memories by now. It's really fucking frightening to think that 2014 is almost 9 years ago. Ugh. Almost gave me a physical shudder. But it's true, and, yeah. Well. Anyway, the point is that that was a while ago for me. Because I stopped playing this game back then, before the first DLC came out. So I had established an understanding of how the original game worked very early on in Dark Souls 2's lifespan. And then I played Scholar of the First Sin, learned how that worked. Fortunately didn't completely overwrite my understanding of how the original game worked, but I still have to really think about it to remember how it originally was. One playthrough of the original game in recent times on the PC version was not enough to really overcome recent learning of Scholar of the First Sin on PC, because I've done probably 5 builds on Scholar of the First Sin since having started playing Dark Souls 2 on PC, I think since 2018, early 2018. Possibly late 2017. It was a bit before World came out, I remember. Which dates it fairly well, I would say. Just the time when I was playing Dark Souls 2 for the first time on PC. Which ended up being fairly enjoyable. Alright. I probably should... Oh, Soul of the Pursuer. So, there is a shield that's quite good. No, actually, it's not that great. As far as great shields go, the Pursuer Great Shield is not amazing. I'm going to leave this soul alone. I almost made a Merciful Fate reference that dates back to, I think, March of 1981. I'm not going to sing it, but like, we're talking like old demo tapes of Merciful Fate. Anyway, we're going to leave this soul alone, in the words of King Diamond. And I'm going to see later on if I want to make the Greatsword. I may want to, may not want to. Doesn't matter. But in the meantime, I will definitely level up. Because I don't want to be moving through the Bastille with... Bastille doesn't matter. With 19,000 souls on hand. You see, you guys can't see my souls. So you don't constantly have that to refer to. But that's how many I'm holding. Which is a little too much to be wandering through that. To be honest, I'm not going to bother going through the Lost Bastille in that direction. I'll go through it when I enter it from No Man's Wharf. I'm about to head that way anyway. I see. 7 level ups. Very well. That's more than I was expecting, to be honest. Endurance to 10. Are we going to be overindulgent and take our strength to 20? Is it worth it? I have to think about that. The reason why it might be okay to do that is because the benefits of really heavy strength investment may be greater than basic stat investment in stats like vitality and dexterity in the early game, but the question is what I want to do with my weapons going forward. Because that is going to dictate the early game in terms of stat allocation. Stat requirements are what dictates stat allocation in the early game. And if I don't know what weapons I want to use, I don't know what my stat requirements are going to be. So, I'm poorly prepared. I'm totally disorganized right now for leveling up. You can reallocate your stats. Well, that's all well and good, but what if in the early game I don't have the stats that I need? It's going to be very awkward. Okay. Let's be a little more prudent than this. We're not just going to dive into strength and take it to 20. That's soul level 37. We may put some points into dexterity first. Maybe to 12. Just incremental improvements. We don't need to dump everything into dexterity and take it to 14. That may be totally unnecessary. 12 is a comfortable place to stop if you're going to be strength focused, by the way. I don't want to have a quality faith build, because to be honest, you're already going to be putting a lot of points into faith. So, better to keep it to 2 main stat bonus skills than 3. Doesn't matter what game you're playing, quite frankly. I mean, you can do it at high, so actually, yeah, you can do it at high soul levels. And I happen to be playing the Souls game where you reach ridiculously high soul levels in New Game before even reaching New Game Plus, because you can just abuse the bonfire ascetic system. So, maybe a quality faith build is entirely viable. But you know what is very important? Equip load. So I'm gonna do that. I'm trying to be sensible. We will do that. What I really want is to have something that's not the mace. I have become totally sick of the mace. The first opportunity that I have something else to equip that makes use of my strength stat, that's not the mace, I will equip it. Fuck. I'd love to use that. But you see, the lightning Drangleic sword? No. I don't want to take my dexterity to 20 yet. I have actually personally decided to use, or rather create this to be a quality faith build, but oh dear. The thing is, the stats of this are very similar to that of a curved greatsword, and this is not a curved greatsword. Very high dexterity requirement for a strength-focused weapon that scales. Oh, hold on, this is why it's different. It's because the primary scaling is actually not strength, but rather dexterity. So this is very close to being a curved greatsword. Very appropriate, incidentally, for quality builds. The problem is that the Drangleic sword is a bit too standard, isn't it? It's too easy to get, and too easy to have a build focused around. I don't like that at all. I don't want to create the obvious, boring build. Even though I independently of this weapon being in my inventory decided to do a quality faith build. Ugh. What's ultimately stopping me? Concerns that other people have made builds like this a million times before? That's probably every build, isn't it? Well, I hope you'll be forgiving of me, everyone. I'm going to make a Drangleic sword-focused early game faith build. The question is, can this be infused with, you know, whatever the Thunderstone thing is? I do wonder that. It probably can be. I just can't really check at this point. Let's use the house key for the moment. Stop all this business. Equip your mace and equip your chime. No comment is required. Alright. We're using the house key that we acquired before. Big book. I just had to make mention of that. We're doing this to get a soul vessel, you see. Remember when I said that stat reallocation is not an early game thing? Well, I would say that we're still in the early game, but I've already just about gained access to my first stat reallocation, so that's pretty sad. Just in case you've really fucked up already. Unbelievable. Soul vessel. You would be very foolish to use one this early in the game if you were simultaneously stupid enough to fuck up your stats beyond all salvation and repair this early in the game, and stupid enough to not actually know how to fix it properly. Don't use a soul vessel now. Wait until later, when you've got a clearer idea of what you're doing with your build. Okay. I did get an Estus Flask shard. I will make use of that now.
Here.
It is a shard I found, yes. No, I don't want to level up. I want to give you my shard.
by praying to you. We don't seem to be transacting in anything. I've got a shard, you are supposed to take it, but instead I just do this, and then somehow you've got the shard. I understand how it works. The shard is not a physical thing. I mean, it sort of is, but by praying, the shard is... it doesn't matter. I'm being stupid, and then I'm trying to clarify my stupidity. As if it were not intentional. Alright. I could technically take on the... what are they called? I think he's called the Dragon Rider, isn't he? I say they because there's more than one, but there is only one as a boss. In fact, sorry, I must take him on. He is the boss between this point in the game and No Man's Wharf. So we will fight him. And we'll see what kind of threat he poses. Quite frankly, he's easier than the Flexile Sentry, so... if he poses a threat to me at this stage, the Flexile Sentry is going to be a real problem. If there's one thing I can say about that Sentry, it's that he is remarkably flexile. Which frightens me. Not really, I don't worry so much about the Flexile Sentry. I try to summon Lucatiel for him when I can, but I don't know if I can. I'll try. Get over here. I have a strategy with this fellow. It's a good enough strategy. It involves doing this. He fell before I could even show you that he was falling. But that probably looked quite similar to him being there and then suddenly not being there, which is entertaining in its own way. But this is actually a form of very early game soul farming, which I like to engage with. When I say very early game, I mean literally first time you come to Majula. Just stop it. There you go. You can see him falling a bit better there. But yeah, doing that until he actually despawns is a good way to get some souls in the very early game. I don't know if that is a legitimately appreciated or utilized strategy in the early game, but it's what I've always done. I should have made a video about it back in 2014 and gotten hundreds of thousands of views and all of that. But I didn't. And I don't regret it. Quite frankly. Fucking glad I didn't. It's not that great. This is the thing. It's not that great of a strategy. It's okay, but it doesn't make a huge difference to your early game experience. So I wouldn't say that it's a game-breaking strategy to employ. That's my evaluation of it. I'd better fight you. Hey. I'm not sure if this one respawns. I don't think he does. I have a distinct feeling that he does not. Did you just see that? He was going for an attack and then simply could not commit to it. That's what it is. Sublime Bone Dust drops from that particular enemy, and he does not respawn. Sublime Bone Dust is what is used to increase the efficacy of your Estus Flasks. You can actually get this guy to fall off as well pretty easily. He's got another attack. Come on. I'm actually very strong against these enemies right now. It's refreshing to see. I often engage them with pretty weak weaponry. I have a healing miracle. What am I doing? We've been over this. I just can't seem to get it into my head that I have the ability to heal myself without consuming either life gems or Estus Flasks. It's a tragic thing. It's a sad, sad little condition. Oh, I rolled into it to try and reduce the... I don't know. You know what I mean. It is nice to deal this much damage, though. Oh, God, I was trying to avoid your boyfriend. And now I'm dead, because I'm trying to fight the two musketeers, you know? Fuck the pair of you. Why do I bother with these things? I should just run past them. Keep it simple. Oh well. I like to draw them individually, but I have nothing with which to draw them to me individually. Come hither. Goodbye. I'm going to run past these enemies and engage the boss. Because I haven't the time for them. I don't think they're giving me enough souls to make it worth my while. So I shan't bother. Where are you? Oh, come on. I need to kill all enemies to get that stupid thing to appear. I don't need that extra floor. As long as you have one of... Oh, what was that? That was my controller dying. Stop. Stop dying now. Don't you dare have me die again. Come on! Fuck me. My controller has just officially fucked up. I don't care. Relax, Doomlink. Breathe. I don't know what's causing. I do not know what's causing this. I've got no idea. Maybe the mini USB port on my controller has finally fucked up. If you can believe it, the PS3 controller that I'm using to play this game now is about as old as this game. I bought this probably around September 2014. Around that time of year. I think this game came out around April 2014. So, yeah, it's about as old as Dark Souls 2 itself. So, it's lasted pretty well. And I don't mean it, I mean the mini USB port. If you know anything about mini and micro USB, they both fucking suck. So, stop tracking me like that. I'm deathly afraid of my mini USB port right now. I can't trust it. Dealing good damage. Happy to see that. Alright, let's have some better stamina management. But yeah, honestly, the second floor, it depends how you look at it. There is one floor, a second, and a third floor, but there are two that you manually raise. You obviously need some kind of floor when fighting this boss. Just depends how you look at it. The second raisable floor is not required. I will say that the boss is really annoying without the second one that can be raised. No, sorry, without the first one that can be raised. But you can see, like, come on, do you really need more space than this? It's ridiculous. So, generally speaking, I just pulled the one lever, and that does it for me. I don't like having to keep using this mace, but it's doing good damage, so could be worse. How long have I been live for? I've been live for 2 hours and 35 minutes. I may have this be my point of conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't want a super late night tonight. I hope you will enjoy it. There was a bit of stuffing around. This has probably been about a 2 hour long VOD, I'd say. Maybe 2 hours and 10 minutes. But, yeah, there was a lot of messing around before I was actually properly doing the VOD. I hope you all have enjoyed the first part of the Dark Souls 2 livestream series. I'll be feeling my way through the game itself, refamiliarizing myself with all of its... with all of the interstices of the game as they exist uniquely. aside from the other. It doesn't matter. Just trying to say, like, as they exist distinctly or distinct from the other games. Uniquely. It doesn't matter. Shut up, Doomling. End the recording. Tyler was going to stop watching anyway because he was going to sleep. Good timing indeed. I do thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time I'm recording Souls, or anything else you'd like to watch. And I bid you all farewell for now. Bye bye.